So in the last video, we talked about, well, what is nonverbal communication, what are the different principles of it, and how does it function. Here we're going to talk about types. And even though I'm going to try to make this one video, I doubt it. There's just so much to unpack. So let's get started with talking about how we communicate through our body movement, our kinesics. Now, every single time that you move your body, kinesics is happening. It can be your facial expressions. Be aware that people consider your facial expressions to be a really true form of how you're feeling. So if you say you're happy and your face doesn't match, people are going to think you're probably not actually happy. You look like you're very upset. Then there are gestures. In most textbooks, you'll find that gestures are referred to as movement with your hands or your arms, such as waving at someone. This textbook, however, says that gestures are any physical movement that's used to convey a message, which is a very different thing than I've been taught. Then there's even posture. Posture is how you physically orient yourself to someone else. It can be maybe having an open posture, maybe your shoulders are back, you're standing very proud, your feet are a little bit wider in your stance, you maybe even look taller, you have a really straight back. You're physically open to someone, to where if someone just kind of came and touched you, there would be no way you would block yourself. That way you have a very open posture. You probably look like you're very interested in what's ever being communicated to you, that you're attentive, and that you're probably pretty confident as well. Then there's also those closed posture moments where maybe you don't care to really engage in the conversation. So maybe your shoulders are a little bit more hunched in, maybe you're slouching, maybe you're folding your arms and your feet are really close to each other, and that way you look smaller and you're trying to communicate in some way. I don't really want to talk to anyone today. Leave me alone. Also be aware that your nonverbal communication can mirror other people's nonverbal communication. I had two students standing next to each other in line, and I noticed that they were both standing similarly to each other. They had their fingers interlaced, low on their bodies, and while they both didn't start in that position, they ended up there. Be aware that when you mirror someone, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's completely unintentional. It's at a subconscious level. And when that happens, in some way it shows that you are making connection with that other person, that you can convey empathy. Now there are different types of kinesics. There are the ones that are emblems, that directly translate into a verbal message. Think of these as the ones that can substitute, such as the finger to the mouth to tell someone to be quiet. Also think about illustrators that emphasize a message. So these will accent or even complement a message, such as smiling when you're really happy, or doing a thumbs up when someone does a good job. There are the effect displays that convey emotion. So maybe you're really angry and you start pounding your fist. Yeah, that's going to show people that you're very angry and convey that emotion. There are the regulators that manage conversation. So when I moved my hands in front of my friend's mouth so he wouldn't tell my secret, that was me regulating. Adapters. These are the ones that can cause confusion because you're really just satisfying a bodily need. I remember I was winking really quickly with my eye because I was irritated, and my sister thought I was trying to send her a message. She said, "What? What's going on?" I said, "Nothing. I'm trying to get something out of my eye." Had an adapter there. Then there are times where we communicate through our eye movements. And this can convey feeling, attitudes, and thoughts. One of my favorite movies, I, Robot with Will Smith, has a significant eye movement that happens that I love. If you haven't seen the movie, I need you to pause and maybe skip 5 to 10 seconds. But in this movie, Will Smith tells the robot that a wink means that you can trust me. And at the end, the The robot winks as a sign that, hey, you can trust me to do the right thing to protect you. Be aware that eye contact here in the US is really important. We expect that you maintain eye contact as a sign of respect, to give us your full attention. But in other cultures, it can be viewed negatively. If you stare someone down, right, it can be seen as aggression. And you may just be thinking that you're maintaining eye contact. In some cultures, giving strong eye contact to someone who is an elder or someone who is viewed as a superior in some way to you is seen as you disrespecting the hierarchy. Then there's even how you communicate through personal space, your proxemics. In Western culture, we have the distance zones: intimate, personal, social, and public. Your intimate distance is about touching you to about 1.5 feet apart from you. Now, since this is physically in your space, you only let those people who you really, really care about get in there. Maybe a good friend, a family member, a lover, but you don't usually let people that you don't know that physically close to you. Then there's a personal space. This is again about 1.5 feet to about 4 feet away. It's going to be where your friend could reach out and touch you, but they would actually have to make the effort, not just brush. This is what most people are going to consider their bubble. Then there's the social space, 4 feet to about 12 feet apart from you. At that point, anyone can get into this space and you're not worried about them attacking you or about them touching you, and you can still pretty much have a conversation. Then there's the public distance. For example, when you give a speech and you stand roughly 12 feet away, or maybe more, then that's the public distance in play. Now, how you use your space says a lot. You can say a lot about your relationship with that person. It can say a lot about how you feel personally, such as if you won't sit super close to someone that you have a close relationship with. Sometimes it's an indicator that there may be something wrong in paradise. Even think about your vertical space. Yes, even vertical space. If you've ever had to bend down to talk to a small child who you really want them to focus in on you or let them know that you have their full attention and that they need to give you their full attention back, and guess what? Vertical space is being used. If you've ever stood on top of something to try to get more people's attention, vertical space. Then there's territoriality. This is how you claim your space. Have you ever noticed that on the first day of classes, a lot of people will claim a chair, and then the second day, they go back to that chair, the third day, they go back to that chair, and what happens if on that 5th day, someone's sitting in their chair? Sometimes they don't care, but more often than not, as an instructor, I usually see a student give a look and go find another chair. Not only do we communicate through space, but we also communicate through touch, our haptics. And there are different types of touch. Maybe the type of touch that controls you. I know if I'm in a very large crowd and I'm with my sister, because she's a little bit taller than me and sometimes she can see over what I can see, she'll put her hands on my shoulders and move me to the side so that she can navigate me through a large crowd. And that way she's controlling what I do, so that's the type of touch that controls. Then there is a type of touch that is a sign of love, a hug, a kiss. Sometimes there is a type of touch that shows excitement. So maybe a high five when you've done a good job, a pat on the back. Even the touch that shows anger, such as a slap, or a kick, or a punch. Be aware that touch is also culturally regulated. If I were to walk hand in hand with one of my best girlfriends, most people wouldn't say much. That's expected in our culture, right? If two guys were to do it, it may be seen as strange or as not the norm. But in the Middle East, it's actually quite normal to see two men walking hand in hand. It's not abnormal at all. Again, how we even use touch, culturally regulated. If we were to think about gender, the fact that I could walk hand in hand with a friend who's a woman, that says something. If I were to walk hand in hand with someone who was of the opposite sex, who was a man, then a lot of people would probably assume, oh, well, maybe you're together, maybe you're dating. And that may not be true. That's probably just my friend. So as I said, I really wanted to make this one good video, but there's just so much to unpack with the different types of nonverbal communication that exist. So stay tuned, there's another one coming, and there's a lot more to learn about nonverbal communication.